Oh, you're here. Hey DMD family, welcome back to another Discs MD video. Bunky here. Sorry, I was just downstairs making some last minute preparations for the video. Anyway, let's get to it. Today, we're going to go over my timing drill. So let's get our discs and get outside. And I left my discs downstairs. I'll meet you out there. This elevator takes forever. Come on. Oh, there it goes. Yep, I'll see you outside. Oh, roll the intro. All right, before we get started again, go ahead and hit the subscribe, hit the like, share with your friends. Thanks so much for the support. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. Just helps me so I can keep making content. I'm going to break this video down into 3 different parts. Hopefully there's some impending weather moving in, so hopefully I can get it all done before. Anyway, 3 different parts. They are a couple of tips that I found out about working on your form. Go through a series of progressions that I'm doing with this coil and firing your hips and timing, and then wrap it up. I want to go across to the field and sort of do a test and then use that as a benchmark moving forward to see how I'm progressing, right? Because it doesn't mean anything just me here standing here talking to you about this stuff if it doesn't work for me. So I want to show you that it's working for me, okay? So let's get started. So first, a couple of tips that I've realized as I'm working on my form. First thing is work on one thing at a time. Don't try multiple things in your form at a time. I know there's a lot of things in our form that we can work on to help us. Work on one at a time. And my advice to myself and ultimately to you through this is fix the biggest things first, but only work on one thing at a time. If you try to start working on multiple things, it just doesn't work. I've tried. I can't focus on 2 things at once. If you can, awesome, but I would imagine that most of us cannot. So work on one thing at a time. Second thing is slow down. And I mean that in 2 ways. The first thing is this is not going to happen overnight, and I've said this in past videos. It's going to take a long time, and I have to remind myself of that daily. I want this to work instantly. It's not going to. Expect a form change to take months, right? Repetition is the mother of change. We have to do things over and over again. We have to get as many repetitions in as we can in order to teach ourselves, whether it's memorizing stuff or getting our body to do a certain habit. You have to do it over and over and over and over again. You give yourselves months to work out a form change. And you're like, wow, that's going to take years to fix my form then. It's going to. I get it. I'm 50 years old. I don't feel like I have years, but if I want to do this right, it's going to take a long time. The second part of slowing down is slow your form down. Go down to 30, 40% with your form of power and work through it systematically and methodically instead of rushing into, okay, this is what I need to do 5 or 10 reps and then go full speed. Don't do that. Don't go full speed until you're at the end and you've got everything down. Then take it full speed and see what happens. Okay, so those are my 2 takeaways, my 2 tips for your form change. One is only work on one thing at a time. The second thing is slow down. All right, so let's move on to the drills that I'm doing right now. Okay, step 1 is fairly simple, and you've seen this. I do shadow drills inside. You saw my short. Hopefully, if you haven't, it's on my channel. Look for that. I do these inside. You can do them whenever, but I also need to do them outside so I can throw. Oh, another tip. When you're doing stuff into a net, and shout out to, I think it was Nick Carroll, I think. If it wasn't, I'm sorry to whoever it was, but one of my viewers told me a tip for these net drills, have somewhere in the net that you're throwing into to make sure you're releasing at the correct height, right? So the standstill. Feet about shoulder width apart, nice athletic stance. And this is all about standstill, weight shift, and firing my hips before anything else. I'm not worried about my arm here at all. The only thing about my arm I'm worried about is making sure my disc is placed away from my body and not directly behind me. Okay, so get in a nice athletic stance, feet shoulder width apart, put my arm and disc up already, and I'm turning with my core and then with my shoulders, right? And I'm going to about 45 degrees to my target. So if this is perpendicular and this is parallel, I want my shoulders to be about 45 degrees, right? About halfway in between those two. So the way I achieve that is pull back with my core and then turn my shoulders to get the rest of the way, making sure my disc is back. So right now, all my weight, my coil, and my shoulder is applying pressure to my back leg down and through the ground. So all the pressure right now is on my back leg. When I fire through, my weight should transfer to my front leg and torque from my front leg, and my weight should move forward, right? And that happens beginning with the hips. So from this position, I'm firing my hips first, and I'm worrying about nothing else but turning my hips through. Everything else should come through automatically. It should drag it through, right? So from here, fire my hips and then drag the rest through. Did you see how I finished? I was on my back leg. And this is a bad habit that I have, and I want to walk through this real quick. In baseball, my baseball swing, I have a bad habit of swinging through and leaning back onto my back leg instead of planting and driving my weight into my front leg and pushing forward with my swing as I rotate, right? This brace allows me to torque as I rotate through my swing. And when I finish my swing, my weight should be pushing forward and down into the ground, right? If I'm swinging correctly. I'm still not over my front foot, but I'm pushing into it and rotating through it. And there's the wind. I'm sorry if that messes up my audio. Hopefully the mic takes the brunt of it. It's the same thing in a backswing. When I come through, my rotational force should be applied into my front leg, through my front leg, and down into the ground, bracing on it and turning. And when I finish, I should have my weight forward, pushing my foot into the ground. So that in order for me to consciously do that, I lift my foot up to make sure that my weight is not back. So when I do these drills, if my foot's not coming up at the end, I'm not doing it right. Again, I'm not a coach. Okay, I am a coach. I'm a softball coach. I'm not a disc golf coach. I'm trying to explain to you what I'm doing, so maybe it helps you as well. So let me do another one, and then we'll move on to the next iteration. I don't want to beat a dead horse here. So feet in an athletic stance, turning my core and my shoulders, feeling the pressure in the back, firing my hips through first, right? And then my leg comes up, so I feel that weight transfer into my front foot, helping the torque of my rotation around. And that disc hit almost exactly where I wanted. So this is the first iteration of this core progression that I'm going through. Okay, step number 2 is a step through. Yannick called it my pitching motion, and it kind of looks like it. But if you think about it, when you go through your walkthrough, your X step, right? At some point you're like this, and then you step forward and throw. So I am going to mimic from here on, and you can do this 2 different ways depending on when you want to coil. And again, we've talked about this. Everything before the plant is really subjective to you and how your body works, how your mind works, and what feels comfortable for you. So if you're going to be like Calvin Heimberg and you're going to do your coil as you're X stepping, I would suggest to get in this stance, go to your X step and coil as you're doing this, and then go forward, okay? If, like me, you want to coil as your final step is going forward, start like this, and then as you're stepping, do your coil, plant, and then fire. This is all about training your body to coil, plant, and fire in a specific order to get that timing down. So I'm going to start here as I'm finishing my X step, have my disc out in front of me, and I'm going to take my step forward, coil, fire, turn my hips. What happened? I'm on my back leg. Yanni, I'm on my back leg still. So we can't do that. We're going to start here. We're going to go coil, right? And that one I pulled my leg up to make my body know that I need to get up on that front foot to shift my weight. Do it one more time. Okay? And this is all I'm doing. Right? Making sure I'm firing that core first. And notice, I'm not throwing hard. Start slow and just make sure you're stepping. And even if you want to do an interim and do some shadows of this, right? Go forward, fire, and then get a disc. Go forward, fire, get a disc, go forward, fire, and then bring through, making sure your weight is forward when you're finished. And that is progression number 2. All right, so the last step in my progressions is my actual walkthrough. But I am starting facing sideways now. The problem I see, and I think Bodanza's a great channel. I just found him and I've been watching him a lot lately. If for some reason you found my channel before his, which would be an absolute miracle, I'm going to link him in the description below. He's quickly becoming one of my favorite disc golf channels. He found, and I'm actually, when he said it, I think I'm finding the same thing. When I start forward and I go, I over-rotate. Just because I have to rotate to get into my X step, I'm over-rotating. So I'm going to start this progression sideways, right? And it's going to be step, X step, step, fire. Step, X step, and fire. And again, I'm working on, as I'm X stepping, as I'm going forward, getting that core to rotate, getting into position for when I land to fire my hips and transfer my weight forward, okay? And again, doing it very slowly as I start. X step, coil, engage the hips, finish forward. One more time. Coil, engage the hips, finish forward. Now this one was off to the right here, but at a good level. I want to be hitting a little more left, but at a good level. So those are the 3 progressions I do in this drill to train my core to fire first. Again, I'm going through these within a 15-minute video. Take your time, and I'm sorry, I'm out of breath. Yes, I'm old. Take your time when you're doing this. So that first iteration, I would do it, for a couple weeks of just standing still. And don't just do it into a net. Find a field to begin with and start and measure how far you're throwing at the beginning. Come back, do a bunch of them into your net, and then go in a couple of days or the next week, go back to the field and see if it's made any difference, and come back and do it into the net again, and do it for a couple of weeks, just stage 1, and then move on to stage 2. Because honestly, that's probably what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to just be doing stage 1 to teach my hips to fire first and see how I progress. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to go over to the rec, hopefully. I feel some drips, but I think I can get over there before the rain starts. And I'm going to do the first phase of the first iteration of my drill for firing my core, just to get a baseline for how far I'm throwing my disc for step number 1. So I'll see you over at the field. All right, the rain is coming. So real quick, I'm going to throw a Mako 3, an Echo, a Hex, and 2 buzzes. I did this in my critiquing my game video, one of my first videos. I'll link it below. I'm going to compare these throws to those throws. Those throws were like 250, full bore running up. So I'm going to try to compare those throws to these throws and see how we do. Again, stand still. Same thing I was doing into my net, I'm going to do in an open field. You'll be able to see the field. I have a camera behind me, so I'll switch views there. Anyway, starting with my Mako 3. I'm not worried about arm here. I'm not worried about angle. I'm just worried about coming through with my hips. And I'm not going full bore either. I'm throwing probably about 50%, I would imagine. Got a slight headwind right to left. So it's about what I had last time I did this too. All right, that's the 5. I'm gonna go shoot distances, and depending on the weather, I'll break it down here, I'll break it down at home. Okay, so I came back home in between rain showers. I'm gonna wrap this up real quick. I wrote down the list of how I did with my distances. My Echo went 183 feet. My Buzz Z-Line went 190 feet. My Hex went 208 feet. My Buzz ESP went 214 feet. And my Mako 3 went 238 feet. And I'll list them out over here. I'm going to cut my top and my bottom one like I did in my video before. Leaves me with the middle 3. I average those. And the average is 204 feet. So even with standing still about 70% power, if I'm going to be honest with myself, I know I said 50%, but it's probably about 70% power. I'm only averaging 48 feet shorter than when I was doing my all-out throwing about 2.5 months ago. Gotta love it when the tankers go up my road. For the next 2 weeks, I'm gonna just keep doing this, my standstill throwing, and I'm gonna see how much it improves over the next couple weeks, and I'll report back to you in a couple weeks and see how we do. So for us old guys, this saves on your elbow and your shoulder. It really does. So even without it benefiting any distance whatsoever, it saves your elbow and your shoulder. So, I mean, I know for you younger guys watching this, you're like, he only throws 300 and 350. There's not going to be anything I can learn from this guy. But I don't have to throw 500 feet to learn how to gain distance in my throw. And if a guy who throws 320 can learn how to throw 400, I mean, I think a guy that throws 400 can learn from that to throw 450, 480. It's just all implementing the technique to your body. And I'm limited in my height, you know, in my size and my age. I don't think I'll ever throw, you know, over 400. But if I can gain 80 feet of distance consistently, I'm doing something right. So hopefully it helps you out too, no matter what your age, no matter what your skill level. You can start implementing what I'm doing if it's helping me. And I hope to prove that to you over the next few weeks. So until next time, enjoy